The New York Jets blow a 16-0 lead and lose their 2019 opener. Wide receiver Quincy Enunwa is out for the year again with another serious neck injury. Another week, another new kicker. This time it's former Penn State record setter Sam Ficken. Jets make a trade with New England. That's right. The Rebels make a deal with the evil empire of all teams to acquire veteran Demaryius Thomas. Sam Darnold has strep. CJ and Quinnen are on the mend. Adam Gase tells it like it is. And defensive coordinator Greg Williams takes on his old team on Monday night in a must-win for the good guys. All this and more on Jets FM on AOFN, brought to you by ourlads.com, providing the best New York Jets depth charts in the industry. And Athlon Sports, the leading publisher of preseason annuals for more than 50 years, sold in 60,000 outlets nationwide. Jan, Jets, 16-0. And you saw it all live. All right, put that newspaper down. And you saw it all live, Jan.
Do you have to remind me of that? I'm still trying to get over the scars after being there live and having to endure, for lack of a better term, the collapse. 16-0. A couple of, I'm sure we'll go through it, but a couple of key plays, a pass interference, not a pass interference call, a roughing the passer call, which was a little ticky-tacky, but probably the right call based upon the rules, a drop pick, an offense that became stagnant, a defense that lost their number one probably defensive player or the worst number two behind Jamal Adams. And after that, the middle of the field was gashed all game long by the Bills, and a 16-0 lead, partially created by a missed extra point and a missed field goal, went by the wayside. And it was, I know you hate the term, and I'm sorry to use it, but yes, it is still accurate to a certain extent. As people have said, you can change the coach, you can change the GM, you can change the players, you can change the uniforms, but unfortunately, the end result at times is same old Jets.
Oh, he didn't do it.
I know you hate.
Didn't do it.
I know you hate the term, but again, our history shows that these type of losses are more commonplace than rare.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's another coach, new uniforms, new everything. But yeah, it is. I tell you, you got to go back to Bill Parcells. Isn't he like the only coach that I can recall in all my years watching Jet football where I never felt that way, where I didn't feel uneasy about games?
Yeah, I mean, even under Herm Edwards when they were winning, you probably felt that way. Even under Rex at times, you probably felt that way, although maybe under Rex it wasn't the same just because he was so bombastic. You kind of ignored a lot of that stuff. But when Parcells came in and brought a level of professionalism, for lack of a better term, and then you'd have to probably go back even well before that, the Weeb Eubank days, maybe a little bit when Namath was there, probably a little bit under Walt Michaels, but even then you look at you look at the game against Cleveland that they blew in the playoffs that they should have won, which also turned by a roughing the passer penalty. How ironic is that? Mark Gastineau with a stupid penalty on Brian Saib cost the Jets advancing.
And
we
all knew what would happen after the penalty. We all knew
and
the game was over.
Here, Anderson takes this it was a ticky-tack call. There's no question. He barely touched him. You can argue that the lineman impacted his making contact with the quarterback, but he made contact, and that per the rules, they're going to call that. I mean, to me also, Marcus Maye's drop pick, and I'm watching it, and I'm staring straight at it from where my seat's, and I'm going, oh boy, I really hope it doesn't come back to cost us, because at the time, the penalty kept the drive alive, but an interception would have basically kept it at 16-0, would have let the Jets retain momentum in that game.
Well, don't forget
the ball over
as they did the dropped interception, Henry Anderson's 15-yard penalty.
That's what I said. Anderson's penalty kept the drive alive. Right, and then later on in that drive, you had the potential interception, which would have kept it 16-0, maintained your Jets' perfect record in terms of turnovers because they didn't have any turnovers until really the last play of the game, and they didn't capitalize. And they got the touchdown on the Mosley pick, but other than that, you look at all the turnovers, and they did nothing offensively to capitalize on their turnovers, which came back to haunt them.
Yeah, look, there's obviously a lot of things that disgusted Jet fans, disgusted me, but I think like the coach. Hearing from him a few days after, and I think like the players too, you do go back, you understand a lot of things about, it was a tough one to lose because in the NFL you need these wins, and what happens if they're in a playoff hunt into the season and they lose out by a game? This is one of those games that's going to kill them. But there are a lot of things to feel good about when you can consider Sean McDermott, year 3, really good defensive coordinator. Gase, year 1. Darnold, year 2. Offensive line playing for the first time together. Enunwa, of course, he was ineffective. Obviously, we'll talk about him in a minute. Reason for that, obvious. Herndon, suspended. There are, and the one guy that didn't seem to be a problem was Le'Veon Bell. And boy, did he look awesome.
So my comment to that is excuse, and more excuses. Regardless of regardless of the reasons, regardless of why it happened, they blew a 16-0 lead. Now, if they had trailed all game long and lost, I could say, okay, I would use all of those comments you made and say, yes, those are rational reasons for what happened. When you have a 16-0 lead, you should win the game now.
I'm not saying that they should have won the game.
My counter argument to that is if you looked at what happened in the first half, Josh Allen had this team moving. Buffalo was moving the ball. They just kept short-circuiting themselves with turnovers, and that's the reason why they didn't end up having a lead or basically scored any points in the first half. So it's not as if the Jets were just clamping down and stopping them. They were short-circuiting themselves, but didn't take advantage. And unfortunately, what ended up happening was the roughing the passer penalty, then followed by the drop pick, gave Buffalo 3 extra points, and they ended up taking advantage because they went down the field and scored, and then went down the field again and scored.
Let's also keep in mind why they went down the field and scored.
And Devin Singletary took advantage of the lack of C.J. Mosley in the middle of the field to gash the Jets repeatedly over and over again. To me, yes, a big loss, but defensive scheme didn't do a good job of compensating either.
And yes, let's get to both of those. First of all, as I said in the beginning of the year, the reason I predicted that the Jets would win 10 or 11 games, I said it over and over again, is only if all the key players were healthy, and here was the exact reason why. You take one of the top 2 defensive players on the roster, maybe after this game, the top defensive player on this roster, out, and this team just fell apart. Number 2, let's get back to Greg Williams because I completely agree. We talked about how they had to. I just felt they had to go to a more of a 4-man front. How could you're going to tell me that if Bill Belichick was in the same situation, he would have played lesser players to fit the scheme instead of going to better players and changing the scheme? We all know what the answer to that is. I think I gave Greg Williams too much credit, thinking you've got almost a month to figure out. And after all of these defensive linemen were kept on the 53-man, I just felt it was a given. There were 5 defensive linemen were active in the game. 5? I mean, if you look at the snaps, we had Hewitt playing 68 of 69 snaps. Leighton Hewitt. We had Luvu 38%, Lange 36%, and the rookie played 32%. And with one guy going down, and we all know that guys can get hurt. One guy went down on the defensive line. Then we had 4 guys left. That's inexcusable. I gave too much credit to Greg Williams.
And then also you look at the play of the secondary, which struggled as well.
Big
Tremaine
surprise.
Johnson was we said that, but Tremaine Johnson giving 10-yard cushions to everybody and backing off didn't help and getting beat across the middle on slant patterns.
Why?
And then part of that may have been with Mosley being out, as his drops may have been wrong. I don't know. And then the other one was the Dow Roberts touchdown was at the end of the field that I was at, and I'm watching it going, oh, this doesn't look good. And Roberts literally tried to maul the guy. Still couldn't stop him from catching the ball when he caught it and waltzed into the end zone.
Yeah. And, of course, don't forget he had the penalty that negated the interception, the one that Marcus May caught.
Correct.
So, of course, Marcus May catches the one that didn't matter. So, yeah, it was a very aggravating game. Quincy Enunwa gets hurt. We didn't know until just within the last 24 hours that it's a serious neck injury. It's unfortunate. I think at this point, I don't even know why he would consider coming back into the NFL. You don't want to mess around with 2 serious neck injuries back-to-back. So the Jets go out and make a trade with, of all teams, the New England Patriots to bring in Demaryius Thomas. And now the Patriots, they were getting rid of Thomas because of Antonio Brown. So I hope the Patriots get what they deserve with this Antonio Brown fiasco. And if Demaryius Thomas now becomes a Jet, and he's about to become a Jet, he knows the Gase system. That's good. He's got size. That's good. That's something we need. He'll fill in the Quincy Enunwa size angle. And you got to give Joe Douglas some credit for being proactive in that situation and trading with the Patriots.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things on that one. So first, yes, height, yes, knowledge of the system. Whether or not he still has the talent remains to be seen because he really did nothing and fell off a cliff last year.
Well,
The
let's keep in
Patriots,
mind. Now I'm going to go over the stats: 59 receptions,
compared
677,
to what he
five
used to
touchdowns.
do.
But wait. He got injured. He got injured the last
I'm not
couple of
arguing.
weeks of
Right
the
again, so
season.
and New England.
But wouldn't you take that? Wouldn't you
Yes,
take
but New
60
England could have.
receptions?
But I'm sure New England could have removed somebody else off the roster, and clearly they felt that he didn't have enough left in order for them to be able to retain him.
Well, that would have. You know why though?
That has to be part of it.
Well, probably because the one kid, Jacoby Myers, who they like, they don't want to lose. And if I'm the Patriots, I would have done the same thing.
Right. So, and again, and they've also, to a certain extent, must feel that he doesn't have an enormous amount left in the tank, which hopefully Thomas uses as a motivating factor
we only
for
need
them.
A year.
But look, they don't think he probably has enough left in the tank because A, they're trading him within the division, and B, they're trading him to the Jets, and you know they hate trading to the Jets. On the flip side, look,
we'll find out.
Look, we're not going to go into the issue in terms of with Brown, with Antonio Brown. It goes far beyond this call.
Would you have made the deal?
Wait. Yeah, that's my point was going to be made. If the Jets had made a similar deal, knowing what everybody knew then, despite the fact he's a diva, and look, the Jets went out and got Santonio Holmes, who clearly was a diva. The Jets went out and got Brandon Marshall, who clearly was a diva. They've acquired other guys in the past, right?
Yeah.
Now again. Yes, different management, yes, but they've done in the past. So my argument here is if you have an opportunity to get a guy who you still believe could be a top receiver based upon his track record as recently as last year, you do overlook a lot of the flaws. And we've talked a bunch of times, talent will always get chance 1, chance 2, chance 3, chance 4, chance 5, use whatever number you want until they run out of chances because either he doesn't have the talent anymore or he becomes way too much of a head case that even they can't manage the talent, which is clearly what had to happen in Oakland because John Gruden allowed him to record a video call, an audio call with him and broadcast it, which was crazy. But even if he didn't know about it, right? They finally hit a saturation point with Brown where they said, you know what? We paid it. We didn't give a ton up to give you. We gave a contract. It's a non-guaranteed contract other than obviously the signing bonus. We are going to cut our losses now because honestly, we have had enough of you. And we can't stand having you in our organization. That's in essence what kind of happened by them releasing them. And if the Jets were in a position of New England where, hey, we need another wide receiver to maybe take us to that next level, and a guy like Brown is still there, we probably would have been saying, you know what, GM, go out and get this guy because he could help our team.
Well,
they viewed it probably like Randy Moss. They got Randy Moss, who supposedly was a model citizen after he got there, despite all the stuff that went on in Minnesota.
Why are we talking about Antonio
and he was a
Brown?
model citizen because you brought him up.
I did?
You did. You said about they got rid of Thomas by getting Brown.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, I don't want to talk about Brown.
I'm just pointing out that.
I mean, I hope the Patriots get screwed over it.
That's what you said, right?
Yeah,
so my viewpoint on this is let's hope that Thomas ends up panning out. Let's hope he at least he makes up for the loss of Enunwa.
Yeah.
I know your view, and I know a lot of others' views is that Nuna has a lot of talent, which is right, but he's also injury prone. This is the second time in 3 years. He got hurt early in the game.
It's over.
He was down on the sidelines, and I remember in the crowd of us are going, "Oh, first of all, it's oh my god, I hope it's not Bell." Then it was, "Oh, it's Enunwa. Oh, great, he's hurt again."
Yeah.
The comment of "Oh yes, he's hurt again," to me is the telling one because he has the history, and unfortunately, it looks like the year is over, and his career unfortunately may be over.
All right, a few other things I want to get to, but first, let's get to Adam Gase and his press conferences this week because this is perfect timing. We wouldn't have had the true Adam Gase we would have sooner or later after a loss, but it happened after week 1. And this is the reason why I felt Adam Gase would work well with the New York media. Let's, first of all, take a look. Let's see. Where do I want to go first? I tell you what. Let's take a look at what happened when he was talking about the kicking situation. I think this is the press conference today. So let's listen to this.
All right, here's kind of practice status injury update. So CJ, he'll be out of practice today with the groin.
All right, hold on a second because this Jets thing, I love it how they just decide whenever they want to, as I've said before, to just go back to the beginning. The Jets website people have got to fix this. When we press pause at a time, Jets.com, we kind of want to keep it there.
That would be nice.
It would be nice. Hold on, here it is.
Why not? Let's go, baby. I'm thinking positive, Rich. baby. I'm thinking positive, Rich. I know, 31 years on the beat, man. You wanna be Debbie Downer on me? Hey, that's the NFL, baby. Not for long. Next guy up. Made all his field goals and workout.
How much leeway do you give him now? I mean, look, I know that you got to deliver at that position.
Yeah.
You said that you had a good week of practice.
Yeah, you know, he did. He had a good week of practice. I was feeling good. When we left practice, the last day he kicked, I was feeling good. I was like, all right, his stroke looked good, everything looked good. When I went on pregame, not so good. I did not feel so good.
So how much leeway will Fickett get?
I think I'm going into it with confidence that he'll do a good job and that he's the right guy for us. And I got to give him a shot. You got to give him a shot to be able to go out there and execute. I mean, that's what we're bringing him in here for.
All right. So, I think it's kind of funny the way he said it. Basically, what he was saying was, and he talked about this a lot during the preseason, about, well, hey, you can do it during camp, but when the lights come on in the preseason games, that's when we can see it's a completely different story. And this is exactly what he was saying. In other words, the kid choked. That's all he did. And you could tell, we could all tell. I mean, his delivery, I don't think I have ever seen such a bad delivery from a field goal kicker in the NFL in my life. He was just out of sync from the very first kick. He must have tensed up, and this is exactly what worried Gase. And I'm glad they went for two because I expected them to go for two to go up 16-0.
Yeah, I mean, the first kick, yes, you can argue. The second kick, he looked horrible. He wasn't aided by a good snap or a good hold, which impacted him. I don't know if he would have made it anyway, but the stroke did not look particularly good. Them going for two didn't surprise me. You wonder on that last drive if Darnold had been able to get him close, what they would have done, because you clearly weren't going to go in with a lot of confidence. It's just kind of interesting. The other press conference, and we listened to it also, is about the Myers and whether or not Myers. He goes, and they asked him, "Oh, were you involved?" He goes, "Yeah, I don't remember." Or then he goes, "Well, I remember, but I don't want to tell you." Right?
Well, I've got that coming up here.
Right. So the reason I really want to get to this is it's fun. It's good to be, flippant. It's good to be glib. It's good to be open. But he's also got to balance that, and which is something that supposedly impacted him in Miami, is he kind of lost the team a little bit by some of the press conferences and by some of the comments that he made. And he needs to be very careful on a franchise that's still rocky, that's still kind of finding their way. He needs to be careful in terms of how he communicates with the media and also what he communicates in terms of the language he uses so that he doesn't lose the players. And I know there's you're not in love with always all the beat writers, but some of the beat writers have already kind of written about this, that he needs to be careful about this. And it is something you hear the terms he uses at times and you go, oh boy, somebody's going to listen to that. And we like the fact that he's open and honest, but they're not going to react overly well to some of the comments that he's making at times.
All right, now here was, let's see, the first one happens to be about the kicking situation on the conference call earlier this week.
Adam, the personnel guys you have now weren't around during free agency. However, you were. Do you regret not bringing back Myers?
That was a long time ago. I don't even remember what the discussion was.
You don't remember if you wanted him back?
I mean, I might remember. I just don't want to tell you.
It's been reported earlier today, Adam, that you are having kicking tryouts tomorrow with some free agent kickers. Are you saying that's not accurate, or?
I'm saying that I haven't had discussions with Joe and those guys yet, so that doesn't mean that they haven't started getting the ball rolling on that.
Adam, do you take any accountability for the current kicking situation?
Do I?
Yes.
I'm not talking about what happened in the past. It's irrelevant.
I'm talking about the current kicking situation. You've had 3 kickers this offseason.
Right.
Do you take accountability for the current situation?
Sure. What do you want me to do? We haven't performed well. We're going to try to
And you know, it does remind you of. I mean, the closest it reminds you of is Bill Parcells. There's no question about it. But he does have to start to earn the respect in the clubhouse with wins. And the more he does that, the easier it'll be for him to handle the press and for the players to be okay with it. And it's only one game. It can get ugly if they lose on Monday, and then we know they'll lose to the Patriots and go 0-3. I'd hate to see how these conference calls and press conferences are after that. We don't want to be there as Jets fans.
No, agreed. I mean, that's kind of my point. He's in some of the other comments, he's kind of thrown the personnel department on the bus. That that's the responsibility of the personnel department. The comment of I don't want to tell you. Now, granted, part of it has to be taken into account because I know Manish Mehta can be polarizing at times, and he may be specifically talking to Manish in this case as opposed to generically to the reporters because it sounded like Manish asked the question. You know, there's no love lost between the Jets and Manish in terms of the way some of the articles have been written, but he hasn't earned the right yet to respond that way. So, for example, with Parcells earned that right based upon the record that he had after coming over from the Giants. When he was first with the Giants, he didn't necessarily have that capacity to do so. He kind of morphed his way into the role. His record in Miami and the way it started out here, I don't think he's necessarily earned the right. Now, if you're looking down the road when you've played well and you want to start being that glib and that flippant and kind of responding in that way, yes. And while we like the openness, as I said, you need to be very careful in terms of how you manage the situation because it could very easily spiral on you and impact you. So you're saying, well, I haven't been involved in the conversation with Douglas. Come on. We know the coaches are always involved with everybody in terms of knowing what's going on there. So it's kind of BS. And then throwing the personnel saying, well, I let the personnel guys do what they want. Okay. You just would have said, look, we didn't get the job done. We're going to be evaluating the situation and we're going to work on remediating the situation. Would have been a lot better than the way he answered the questions.
Look, I'm fine with the way he's handling it after one game. One game. That's why I said we'll see what happens if they lose and lose again. That could be different. I'm glad. Look, do I want this or do I want what we had? Come on, it's not even.
Look,
close.
You're comparing apples and oranges.
It's not close.
Okay, and again, look, Rex came on board.
Rex.
And Rex was bombastic.
Todd Bowles.
No. What I'm saying is Rex came on board and was bombastic. That was his personality. We wanted somebody that was larger than life, and they got it right. And the media kind of town after a while, and then you ended up doing a 180 down the road when you got Todd Bowles, who was the complete opposite of it. Now behind the scenes, he supposedly wasn't that way, but in front of the fans and the media, and in terms of everybody, he was more so in a shell as opposed to the kind of the guy we were hoping to maybe get when he would reveal his character periodically. Look, Gaze, it's one game, right? You lose again on Sunday, and now you're looking at the gauntlet of what's coming up afterwards, and you could be looking at 1-5, 0-6. I sure as heck hope you kind of mitigate and modify your responses a little bit and don't start talking that way, or else the media is going to tear you to shreds. And we know what happens when that happens in this town.
All right, and then finally, let's hear his take on the pressure that was coming from the Buffalo defense and how we responded to it.
Adam, I think he averaged something like 5.4 yards through the air, something like that. Was one of the reasons you guys didn't stretch the field more because of some of the struggles the offensive line had? I think he took like 9 hits and 4 sacks or so.
Yeah, I mean, if we just make plays on the balls that we actually threw down the field, that's a different number. I mean, we had opportunities. We had a chance to win the game. We got to come out of our double move. The guy falls down, and we don't come out running. So if we do that, then all of a sudden we're scoring a touchdown.
And I think that's interesting because a lot of times people don't understand how the game is actually being determined on the football field as far as coverages, offensive line calling, and exactly what he's saying here. Basically what he was doing was criticizing the receivers.
He was criticizing Robbie Anderson there. That's who the criticism was levied at. But he was right. Anderson did stop. However, the other piece he didn't point out is on the bomb earlier, when Anderson had his guy beat, Darnold underthrew him.
Yeah.
Now, you could argue that if Anderson comes back, he probably draws the penalty because of the fact the way the ball was thrown. If instead of waiting for the ball, he comes back, the defensive back's going to run into him and draw the penalty. If you want to blame Anderson for maybe not doing that and say, hey, a good football play would have been, I could say that. But yes, that one's clearly on Darnold because if Darnold puts that ball out in front of him, there's no question it's a touchdown. He had him open. He threw it late. He underthrew him. But yet you notice he didn't take his quarterback to task. He took his wide receiver to task.
Well, in that comment, he did not criticize Sam Darnold this week.
Not as much. He went back afterwards and said he looked at the tape and thought he made
plays. All right,
plays.
well, you tell me, though. He didn't turn the ball over. And look, you had the view.
He didn't win us the game.
I am not happy with the way Sam Darnold played. But Sam can't do it alone. And if his receivers aren't running the right patterns. See, that's what I can't tell. I don't know. How do I know that Sam Darnold's not sitting there and waiting for somebody to get open, where I'm watching on television going, what are you doing? How come you can't complete a pass to anybody? And the normal reaction is you blame the quarterback. But I don't know. Right. And according to Gase, it's not all Sam Darnold's fault. His receivers weren't doing their jobs. And I think that's what it was. And I'm glad that he called them out on it because I think he needed to call everybody out on it.
I agree with you. But you need to call everybody out, not just one person. Not saying that Anderson's not blameless. I'm far from saying that at all.
Especially if he wants to be a number one. He wants to be Mr. Number One. He's got to make the play. And look, if Darnold wants to, he can't be throwing on his back foot. I don't even know why he was doing that. I'm willing to give these guys a mulligan. They come out on Monday night and they freewheel it and they have a great game. All's forgiven. But I think they look tense. I think even Darnold. I mean, if he was relaxed, he would have thrown that ball properly, stepped into it. It would have been a beautiful touchdown. But we've seen him throw that touchdown pass several times.
We have. I mean, the other thing I will criticize is the use of Ty Montgomery or lack thereof. Five snaps out of 72 is ridiculous.
That's as Gase says. That's every week's game plan. Ty Montgomery is not going to be used like that every week. He's just not.
But again, we talked about the inability of receivers to make plays. You had somebody who's made plays in the preseason that you potentially could have tried to jumpstart the offense at times, and you didn't use him. That's my point.
All right, now new kicker is Sam Ficken. And all we can do is just cross our fingers and hope that he's the guy. At least they've got a kicker finally that has some pro experience and who had a very good college career. I mean, at least keep in mind Ficken, and I just want to point this out, 2014, game-winning field goal in Europe in front of 53,000 fans against Central Florida. And then in the bowl game, he tied the game and hit a game winner. And that was, by the way, at Yankee Stadium. So that maybe there's a little karma there that he did it at Yankee Stadium.
One could only hope. If they have to go through another kick year,
we're in big trouble.
Really
it's over. And Josh Malone will close out. Josh Malone, he came on the practice squad late, I think before our last show. Bengals wide receiver. I only want to mention him now because, obviously, the Jets need more wide receivers. He's 6'3", 208, 23 years old. And Jeff Hobson, Bengals.com beat writer, said he was having the best stretch of his career. Another numbers game with Cincinnati. Things didn't work out. Look, he had his chances. It didn't work out. That's why he's with the Jets. Hopefully the Jets can take advantage. Maybe the light turns on. We'll keep an eye on him. Maybe we'll need him in the next couple of weeks.
Hope so. Let's just say hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
But if he does play well, maybe he gets called up just because he's earned the spot as opposed to us needing him to have a slot.
Jan, appreciate your time, and you're not going to this week's game, right?
I am not going this
week. All right, you'll be up though, watching the game live. Can you do that?
I will be up, depending on how well the game goes that way.
Yeah, we're not going to do a post-game show, so just in case, trust me, if I would have done a post-game show 5 minutes after that game, it wouldn't have been pretty. So I think it's better we don't do any post-game shows this year, at least for a while. All right, we'll talk next week about the game probably, every Wednesday. That's pretty much our schedule. So I'll talk to you again next Wednesday, Jan, and I certainly hope we're talking about a win because if we're not talking about a win before they play the Patriots, it could be a long season.
Could very well get ugly.
Thanks, Jan. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds